This time, like most recent elections, we saw the political discourse hit a new low with sharp personal attacks across the political spectrum. Then it was a battle of freebies or welfarism, if you wish to call it, as the parties went all out to ensure that guarantees or promises reached the common man, announcing them much before the bringing out of the manifesto. The sense is that manifesto or Sankalp Patra unveiling may have just become a formality. Has the campaign for the states set a template for the political lexicon in the run-up to 2024? And which narrative will win the battle for 2024 are the questions that I'm asking on the big fight. Let me bring in my guests. Tuhin Sinha, spokesperson of the BJP, joining me here in the studio. We have Aarti Jairath, senior journalist, Professor Manisha Priyam, Dr. Anshul Avijit of the Congress, Professor Badri Narayan joining us live. We also have Tushar Gupta, senior editor of Swarajya. Beginning with you, Professor Manisha Priyam, do we have a template for 2024, or will 2024 have its own lexicon, particularly keeping in mind that in January there will be the big inauguration of Ram Temple?
No, 2024 will have its own lexicon. It will be spearheaded by Prime Minister Narendra Modi, who is now a very confident leader of India and positioning India within the Committee of Nations as a global leader. You would like me to take your bait and say, oh, Ram Mandir on 22nd January, but that's not where the campaign for 2024 is being scripted. It would certainly add on. It will continue with the pitch of a very, very explicit Hindutva, if that's what you want me to say. But I think the writings for 2024 are a deep and long-term writing. They are a writing that will be about the performance of this government, the recovery on the economic front, the dreams that Prime Minister Narendra Modi has been promising to the citizenry directly from the ramparts of the Red Fort, but also about the Chandrayaan, most notably about the G20, the ease with which the Prime Minister settles down now on global negotiating tables. I saw the ticker there that said in Qatar as well, now the 8 Navy officers whose lives our government had been arguing for, in favor of, and the Qatar government has agreed to this. So any tough negotiating table, and we've been able to have our way, I do think it will be a very, very distinct narrative. Of course, there will be criticism, there should be criticism in a democracy like ours with a plurality of social fabric. But remember, 2024, the general elections for the Lok Sabha will be a cut above anything that you call the myriads of semi-finals in India.
Okay. Your opening comments, Aarti Jairath.
Well, I mean, I think it would really be far-fetched to call this a semi-final because, as you yourself have said, that people vote differently in assembly elections and Lok Sabha elections, and we've seen this in the past. And there's no doubt about it that, the Lok Sabha elections will be all about Narendra Modi. That's what the BJP is going to do. He is the spearhead, he is the face, he is the personality, and they are going to push that with all the achievements that Manisha has just, kind of spelt out. What the opposition, I think, is going to try, and, it depends on how skillfully the opposition is able to navigate this, is to try and localize the election. While the BJP will nationalize it, the opposition will try to localize it, bring it down to candidates, bring it down to areas, bring it down to constituencies.
But perhaps you can do that in assembly elections. How do you localize a Lok Sabha election,
right.
Professor Badri Narayan?
No, but yes. If we go back again in history, in 2004, that is exactly what the opposition managed to do. I don't know whether they can do the same thing this time because Modi is such a dominant figure on the national stage. But I think that is going to be the attempt. Now, that we have to see whether they're able to do it skillfully or not. Karnataka was a template, and we'll have to see whether they're able to translate that template nationally.
Okay. Professor Badri Narayan?
Maria, actually, if you evolve a bigger narrative from these two elections, Assembly and the Parliament, I would like to say that this 2024 election is going to be a contest between politics of hope and politics of discontent. The opposition would like to pose the discontent narrative against BJP, and BJP would like to pose for politics of the hope, narrative of the hope. Look, we have done this, we will do this, India will 25 years, will become like this, third largest economy. Second is image Modi, brand Modi, what we call image Modi, because the entire election is going to be a referendum on Modi. And you know, in all these 4-5 state elections, you must have visited there. People used to say, look, we are voting here to Congress, but in the next election we will vote to the BJP in the parliament elections. In Karnataka also we heard this kind of narrative.
Okay.
So image Modi would be the second narrative. Third narrative would be the beneficiary over Garibi and the religion, means
Okay.
the Ram Janmabhoomi.
Okay. The opening punch from you, Tushar.
Look, 2024 is going to be a lot of things, but it's not going to be about rhetorics. The Labarthi on the ground is going to compare the tangible results they have got in the form of water connections, gas connections, houses, bank accounts, versus what they are being promised. Now, if you talk about the state assembly elections that are going on right now, Telangana votes on 30th November. In 2019, we saw that BJP lost 3 big states, and yet they make a strong comeback in 2019. They lost it in 2018, pardon me. Now, today, as things stand, BJP is expected to do well in Chhattisgarh, though the Congress is being given a favorable edge. In MP, BJP is touted to win, and so in Rajasthan. So if you look at the numbers here, Maria, the elections are going to be won or lost in the 300 odd seats in the Hindi heartland. And that is where the BJP will find its strength on 3rd December. Number 3, one of the panelists spoke about the localizing of the elections. Now, usually that would have worked in the favor of the Congress. But the problem is with the alliance that has come into place, they call it the India Alliance or the Congress Alliance, however you want to define it. How do you do the seat sharing arrangement? That is what needs to be done for
that's the big task for the Congress. Anshul.
Well, what the BJP will try and do in 2024 is play with sentiment, play with emotion, and really hope that that surmounts every other consideration, which is unemployment, which is price rise, which is the reeling economy, the fact that the GDP has been thrown under the bus. So the Prime Minister will leave no stone unturned to do that. The language will become coarser, it will become even more base than it is now. I mean, you've seen the kind of language that has happened. The rhetoric has sharpened to such an extent. And that's because, you know, the BJP's default position has always been this kind of polarizing. I mean, it's not just when they stare at defeat that they do it. They do it all the time. They can't help it. They can't get to sleep at night unless they do it. It's their sort of warm fire at winter. So that's what they will always try and do. The Congress, on the other hand, as for all these coming up states, will try and work on positives. The Chiranjeevi scheme in Rajasthan is absolutely unprecedented. I mean, I know as politicians we have a particular echo chamber in which we just hear the things that we want to. But you go out and speak to people.
Your minute is over. Now to Tuhin.
Maria, we have completed 9.5 years in government under Prime Minister Modi, and yet there is no anger against the BJP. On the contrary, there is anger on the ground against the Congress party for constantly misleading the nation. You know, I would request Anshul to explain over here to the audience, you know, when you fill 1 liter of petrol, how does 50% of that go to Adani? So even the common man, you know, the auto drivers today are very enraged by the kind of misleading which is happening by the Congress party. They were speaking about unemployment, the latest data, whether it is the CMI data, whether it is the SBI report, say the unemployment is at its 4-year low. They were speaking about inflation. Inflation is less than 5% retail inflation. So bereft of any issues, they are only and only misleading the country, either on the caste census issue, where their own state governments of Chhattisgarh and Karnataka don't follow the instructions of Rahul Gandhi. They have been abusing the Prime Minister. And I think, you know, there is a lot of anger on the ground against the Congress party, which is going to ensure a big victory for BJP in all the 3 states of the Hindi heart.
Okay, before I bring in other panelists on other issues, I want to understand from both of you, because he initiated that point of rhetoric going ahead. You know, recently we saw another low in political discourse. Will that be something that we'll be seeing?
We have got used to this language being used from the Congress party since 2007. The only time we respond is when, you know, they try to demonize the country. When Rahul Gandhi questions Make in India program, you know, without realizing without being aware of the data, when he says 98, you know, like every phone is being manufactured in China, when actually 98% of the phones as of today, in circulation in the country are assembled, and I'm consciously using the word assembled, which is a precursor to being produced. When Rahul Gandhi goes abroad and he suddenly picks up a Sikh journalist and says even Sikhs are not safe in India, that is when we respond, because the country's reputation is at stake. When it comes to abusing Modi ji, they have been doing it non-stop since 2007, and they can go on for as long as they want.
No, Maria, critiquing the government is not the same as abusing anyone. You must remember that the Prime Minister is the first among equals. There is a qualitative difference between what the Prime Minister says and what somebody else says. Now, if the Prime Minister succumbs to the kind of language, the BJP and my friend Tuhin will say that no, he has a particular respect and stature all over the world. Now, is it becoming of the Prime Minister at the time of elections and otherwise to succumb to language in a democracy like this? Everyone's looking at him, and we have to critique him for that, because he's qualitatively different. He's the primus inter pares, he's the first among equals, and he's different than the others. You cannot compare the Prime Minister's rhetoric to that of others.
So let's move away from the language now, perhaps, because we will be seeing language at its low or high, whatever we may say, in the next few months. Manisha Priyam, you made this point about, Prime Minister, of course, being the centerpiece around which the entire politic going ahead would be. Then welfarism. Are you seeing this? Because in recent elections, there has been a battle of freebies. Welfarism for one party is revdi for another. So will that be something that will be more substantive, which perhaps will be a good news when parties will be fighting for who would be giving more to the voters?
So can you see that in your question itself, you're moving between freebie, welfarism? Will there be something substantive? Let me concede to you the argument that the victory of the Congress party in Karnataka has held out an important lesson to the BJP. And that lesson is that when the Congress party was able to move the election to left of center, more rural oriented, and rooted with a certain welfarism that is focused asymmetrically, that on the bottommost pyramid, then they were able to work across regions in Karnataka, something that they are never able to do. They were overwhelming caste, remember, they were overwhelming extreme Hindutva. But the point is that is it something that is exclusive to the Congress? Is there the imprimatur of the Nehru-Gandhi family on that? It is something that can be taken up by the BJP. Lessons have been learned. If you see, in the Karnataka itself now, there is a fine balance between having Yediyurappa's son Vijendra. Yediyurappa comes with the image of being a farmer and a labor union leader. Yediyurappa comes with the image of being a very important Lingayat leader and very well worked in his networking across the regions. And you have in the assembly R. Ashoka, who is a Vocaliga leader. So there is a balance of caste. Remember, these castes are all the castes that the caste census walas are saying, oh, we can do it. So this script doesn't have the copyright of either the Congress party or the India Alliance. And what I'm saying is that in the BJP also, remember, there are people who understand that there is an image of the Antyodaya, the bottommost of the pyramid. The market walas and CK Prahlad understand at the bottom of the pyramid as much as anybody else does. So I think the battle will very much in 2024 be as to how in a national election as opposed to a state level election, you can't give bus passes in national elections, right? For women to travel from one place to the other. So how will you align a welfarism?
How will India parties align on welfarism?
Now, India parties, if you see, they are very differently positioned.
Yes.
Some of them are bankrupt states. And how will you have state level exchequers position themselves into state level welfarisms with different denominations as compared to a national exchequer with a vision of welfarism?
Yes.
So it's going to be a very uneven battle. I'm sorry to say this. I'm a theoretical political scientist as much as a very pragmatic one. I can't see it adding up together.
Okay.
You tell me.
Maria, I want to draw a distinction between welfarism and freebies. Freebies are like lollipops. You just distribute them and people, consume them and they're gone.
No, but the point here is
Welfarism-
that
welfarism-
if various India parties who are in power in various states, if they start discussing that, at a national level, can they actually make an announcement of giving free passes to women?
No, and that is why I'm saying that they would like to localize the elections. They cannot nationalize the election. These are regional parties. They will localize them. They will ground the election much more on issues that are close to people rather than the BJP's lofty nationalism. You know, that's what they're going to try and do. Now, how they do it, I don't know. But this is what they managed to do in 2004 when they went around the country. Sonia Gandhi was traveling by road. You know, all the other leaders were going by road. They were talking to people in corner meetings, you know, sitting on charpais, discussing their issues with them. That it was a completely different kind of campaign to the grandiose campaign that the BJP carried out then, India Shining and so on and so forth, if you remember. Now, the point is whether they succeed in doing it or not, I don't know.
Okay.
We have to wait and see because the first hurdle to be crossed is seat adjustment.
Yeah.
That is the first hurdle.
Right,
They have to come to, you know, some kind of an agreement on that. Only then they can take the next
BJP of
step.
today is very different vis-a-vis the
That's
BJP of 2002, 2003. So, you know, we are active at every possible level. Our booth workers, our panna pramukhs are the most active people. So I don't think, you know, this is a problem for the present BJP. But like I
Yes,
said,
you know,
I
when
mean,
you say grandiose, it perhaps fits the BJP pre-2014. Here, the new BJP,
we
as
are
a reporter who has
grandiose.
covered the party,
We-
they have the pulse on the ground. They understand.
They do. But can I tell you
I-
something? This is the first time, and in fact, we've seen it in this election, in this round of state assembly elections.
Let me put
the
it this way,
kind of trouble, internal trouble that the BJP is having, whether it's in Madhya Pradesh, whether it's in Chhattisgarh, whether it's in Rajasthan.
But that's also true for the Congress.
No, the Congress has traditionally been like that.
Okay.
But the Congress has been
Well,
trying
no,
to
no,
put
no,
its
no,
house in
clarify
order.
over here.
So let
Having
me just
realized,
one point.
this
Maria,
as
if I
their
may.
weakness, they've been trying to put their house in order, whereas the BJP has allowed this to really,
I think in a
you know,
democracy,
sort of
every
scupper
party-
its
every
campaign.
party
It
faces
has
that.
definitely crippled
I
its
think
campaign.
let me just, and in a democracy, every party goes through, you know, these churns,
The
and every
BJP
party
has
goes through these
always
faction
been a
wars.
much more
I think the
disciplined
BJP
party.
is
I've
a
also
far
covered the
more
BJP
layered
for many, many
party.
years, and I know that, you know, what
You
it
know,
was
yeah,
like.
for a
BJP
disciplined
just-
party, you would not expect any rumblings.
What do you
So no,
mean?
I think
Are you
rumblings
talking about
are
army this thing?
invariably
Sorry.
always going to be there. I think the beauty of this BJP is that we are very grandiose in our aspirations for the country, which is very important in our Lok Sabha elections. You know, unlike the other side, which has no vision for the country beyond personal and perverse self-aggrandizement, we have a vision for the next 20 years, and that is going to make
Maria,
a very
this-
big difference in 2024.
Mama, Maria, this argument can continue till kingdom come. It's neither here nor there. They will argue, we will argue. The point about localized election is the caste census is actually where all the parties have got together in a common minimum program. They all agree. We've announced it even in our local elections, and this binds the coming up elections with that of the national election.
Although
it's
you
not
have
just
announced it, but it wasn't really the talking point in these elections.
No, it was. We have announced it in this election as well.
But it is not a deciding factor. I was on
I'm just
ground. I mean,
trying
I
to
did not
say-
hear people
I'm
say
trying-
that I'm going to vote for the Congress
No,
because of the
Maria,
caste census they have announced.
I'm talking about the issues that bind this election with the national one and national issues.
Okay.
And
So
caste
let's-
census is a critical one.
So let's
which
talk
will
about that
bind the
binding-
parties India alliance together.
Okay, so
because they've all agreed on it.
Okay, so
right?
this binding factor, Professor Badri Narayan, this binding issue of 2023 elections with 2024. And can caste census be that? Because, you know, it's very interesting that Congress did talk about it, but it wasn't really able to set the agenda. That wasn't the agenda on which the elections are being held here.
Maria, you are right that these 5 state elections and the 24 elections, there may be one content of electoral campaign would be around caste census proposed by the opposition. But I think BJP would try to evolve another bigger narrative than the caste census. They will respond to the caste census in their own language, own diction, but they will evolve a narrative of a hope of the future. No, it's the thing which can submerge this kind of contesting issues with their politics. And with that language, and you know, Modi has already started the future India, the 2024, 25 years India. So that kind of narrative will come. And second is, again, I'm saying that we understand welfarism and beneficiary in our own ways, but people have their own perception about their needs and the requirement, what they want. So you can say that guys, "Arey, ye to freebie hai," or 500 is the freebie hai, but for them it matters. So what is our understanding is that there is a bigger shift within the mentality of the people, so the long endurance mentality, and that shift is replacement of the critical public with the beneficiary public.
Yes.
A beneficiary public is emerging, beneficiary consciousness is emerging among big way in every section of the society.
So
everyone wants to see his or herself as a
Yes.
I think
beneficiary.
something very important is being said by Professor Badri there. Remember, you may not have remembered this, but we who sit here as entitled middle class today, I remember the days when my family would be dependent on the PDS ration that would form the basic part of our family incomes. I remember the cloth that would be bought and all bed sheets were made out of ration cloth. I remember the fact that to come to the prestigious and elite Lady Shri Ram College for Women, my parents in Patna had to surrender the unit of wheat, rice and sugar for me to be able to eat 2 square meals in Lady Shri Ram College.
Yes.
And therefore, I
That
do
makes a huge
believe,
difference,
as
yes.
Professor Badri has said, that there is a beneficiary publics, there was and there continues to be. Now which classes benefit, it's now their turn that's come. We've benefited and exited, made our way into a much more globalized world, not for us to chastise those who are just about taking the first tentative steps. Remember, a caste census will enumerate, but can you tell me what will it deliver?
No, I mean, apart from the caste census, and I completely agree on the point about the kind of the beneficiaries and the kind of schemes. We've tried this in Rajasthan. Every single, in the Chiranjeevi scheme, which is completely unprecedented, even my friend Tuhin will agree. How will he even critique it? I don't know. 25 lakh every family. Now we're getting together on an India alliance on the nature of schemes to protect people at a time of extreme crisis. Why can't it be done? It has to be done.
What is
because
the
even
crisis?
but even the developed countries, the most important aspect of their development has to be providing social security to the people who need it most. That is a common minimum platform on
but
which we
the
all
question
agree.
is that
Apart
if
from the
women,
Yeah.
have toilet, which is associated with their safety security in several parts of India, if women are being made owners of their houses through Awas Yojana, then obviously they are thinking differently now. Women of India, as is evident now, are moving beyond Bijli Sadak Pani. They are thinking about the future of their, their children. And when they think about the future of their children, they will be evaluating what is coming into their account.
No, what the BJP has done is to do what is handed out basic necessities and claimed it as some grand kind of vision, as Tuhin calls it.
Okay.
So their grand vision is actually their polarizing vision. That is their trump card. So you forget about all the labhartis and all that. That doesn't really matter in the end. And when it comes to the crux, when it comes to that edge point, and it will be all about polarizing, hateful
Tushar.
politics, which is going to be the agenda.
No, if the Congress actually believes that Modi has done nothing but give people the basic necessities, the people are also going to question that where were these basic necessities for the last 6 decades? They're going to question. And to differentiate between welfare and freebies, look, Maria, I just have 3 parameters to differentiate them. 1, they are targeted. 2, they are tangible. And 3, they are with an expiry date. And this is what is happening. Like you gave the example of toilets. It's not just not about building toilets. It has a lot to do with the security and the hygiene of the women and the children using them. Bank accounts are not just about having a bank account in a village bank. It's about having a formal cash flow. It's about accessing financial products. You look at the healthcare that is given, that imparts another level of security to a rural family. You look at the food grains that are given. So people are thinking about all this. To say that people will look at one scheme and look at the common minimum program of the alliance and then they'll vote for Rahul Gandhi, that's not how it's going to work. I'll give an anecdote from MP, for instance. The Ladli Behna Yojana, which was launched by Shivraj Singh Chauhan, came into play. Of course, the Congress went overboard with its poll promises, as they would have on expected lines. But on the ground, when you were also touring, you met a lot of women. The women were more concerned about what they were getting into their accounts right now, something they could use, something they could withdraw, rather than what was being promised to them. Now, Narendra Modi, as the Prime Minister, has put 800 million people of this country in the last 10 years on a path where they are enabled. Now they have access to credit, which they never had before 2014. They have access to all the basic necessities. They have food security, women have house security, they have all the hygiene they need. And now they can look at the bigger things. Like the professor pointed out, once upon a time, she graduated from a lower income group to a middle income group. With these welfare programs,
The Prime Minister made fun of MNREGA, Maria, on the floor of the House. It is MNREGA that came to use of the people of India during the pandemic. He made fun of it.
Okay,
And you
we
cut
are
down
talking
your
about,
budget for
we are
MNREGA,
talking about issues that will decide
No, Maria,
2024.
I-
And is there a template which has come out in these elections? What will be the binding narrative? And more or less it appears that on one hand, there'll be an effort at localizing elections. On the other hand, you'll have the Prime Minister as this overarching theme. But when you have Prime Minister as an overarching theme, then it will be about Modi versus who, Manisha Priyam? But do you think it will matter?
No, Maria, I've known you for a long time. I'm again not getting into your bait. The Prime Minister will propose an agenda for the nation, right? What do nations do? Nations govern their own territories and represent themselves in international arena. Now, if he is doing both of these, then how do you think that the Indian electorate that has been voting now for close to a century now will suddenly believe that what a Prime Minister is proposing as a national entity and the proposition to govern international, to you take yourself, steer yourself as an international entity versus dealing on a local issue? Are they voting for the panchayat? I've seen the panchayat elections. I've seen the seriousness with which those elections are being fought. I've seen what issues they are being fought on. I'm seeing the MLA elections. I'm conceding to you that the BJP lost in Karnataka. But those are the same reasons why I feel that the India alliance still does not give me a script. And pardon me a minute more, one interview by Satpal Malik and a few more telling the India alliance कि आप सबके खिलाफ में एक खड़ा कर दीजिए, पॉलिटिकल स्ट्रैटेजी ऑफ इंडिया अलायंस. एक और बात, कास्ट सेंसस कब किया था कांग्रेस पार्टी ने लास्ट कास्ट सेंसस, मुझे बता दीजिए. कर्नाटका मॉडल ऑफ कास्ट सेंसस वेरी डिफरेंट फ्रॉम वॉट एवर वॉज द मंडल प्रोपोजिशन. मंडल प्रोपोजिशन वॉज नॉट द कांग्रेस प्रोपोजिशन. तो आप ये बताइए कि समाजवादियों से बोरो कर करके उसके बाद लेफ्टिस्ट से बोरो कर करके you today want to invent yourself. You were the party that under Prime Minister Narasimha Rao and Manmohan Singh too were the globalizers and liberalizers. Today you want us to think about the bottom of the pyramid. I'm happy to sit in your class, but don't introduce too many new lessons. I'll be too frazzled to figure out who you are, man.
I think,
bottommost pyramid,
I think that
Narega.
So basically, you were on the margins of that discussion.
Copyright to the jiska hai wo.
One quick, no, I think we've forgotten what happened in UPA 1 and UPA 2, where far-reaching...
You did not talk about caste census then.
No, I'm talking about far-reaching
I'll
programs.
tell you what happened
Hang
during
on.
the time.
We introduced caste census in UPA 2. Of course we did.
With
Of course, and hang on a
8.9
minute, let me just
crore
complete.
errors.
And UPA 1, no, hang on a minute. Carrying on the legacy of what has been mentioned of liberalization of the Narasimha Rao government was continued in UPA 1 and 2 with pro-poor schemes and a robust growth rate of an average 8%, which this government contorted and ruined. It was a gift to this government of 8%, which was precipitously brought down to minus 6.6% or 7%, and that is what tanked the economy along with demonetization. You've taken up the worst economic decisions. You have no idea of macroeconomics,
let me
and you're
state
saying
this.
that the Congress party, which has the experience and which did all that pro-poor
Let
work,
me state
is
this
the one
with
at fault.
responsibility that we are not against caste census, but it can't be an exercise at Lippa-Poti, which is what it has always been for the Congress party. When they attempted it in 2011, it had all of 8.19 crore errors, out of which, some 1.5 crore errors still remain unaddressed. They carry out potentially or supposedly they carry out a caste survey in Chhattisgarh, but they don't have the audacity to make it public because they know that again it's a fudged exercise.
No, that's been held up by the governor.
Your CM plainly refused to
that
make it
quantifiable
public,
data
and
has
the
been held
same
up.
happened. Even the Bihar caste survey is absolutely flawed. So for them, it's a desperate, like you mentioned, they're desperately trying to trade the Samajwadi, way, and obviously for right reasons. So Samajwadis are upset because they are getting into that zone. More importantly, in the last few years, through 300 plus government schemes, we have put, 25 lakh crore plus worth of rupees into the hands of people. So beyond this, when Congress, further announces freebies, it is only an attempt to
Yes,
The Prime
perpetrate a
Minister said
scam
that there is no
the point
caste.
here
There are only
impose
poor
financial
people.
anarchy upon the country.
template of caste understanding in southern states who are also the partners in the India alliance, is different from, say, the Hindi belt. So what will be the template?
No.
So you can announce it, but what impact can it really have?
No, absolutely. And, it is a bit, I think, odd to hear the Congress talking about a caste census because, if you look, actually the Congress has it has a dual record. In the South, it has been very much a party of OBCs and very much, has played the OBC card in the South. In the North, however, its vote base has largely been Muslims, upper castes and tribals and Dalits. Actually the OBCs, if you look at across UP, Bihar, OBCs have voted, they've been followers of Lohiya, the socialist parties, not the Congress. So today when the Congress talks about caste census, it sounds very odd. It's at odds with its politics in North India. Now how do they align this with the rest of its partners? Because the rest of its partners are, did come out of that Mandal movement and were, flag bearers of Mandal politics in the early 90s. So how does the Congress align itself with that? It's to be seen. But I just want to say one thing, that, at the end of the day, Professor Badri Narayan talked about the politics of discontent. I mean, if there is such a thing as politics of discontent, it means that despite everything that has been done over the last 10 years, people do feel that they haven't got enough.
So that will be politics of discontent, something that the opposition will raise.
That's right. But
which may not be the real picture.
May not, maybe. I don't know.
Yes.
Because if you go out on the road and you talk to people, and Maria, you've traveled, didn't people tell you that they want this, they want that, they haven't got enough of the other? The fact is that they may have, and particularly women, you brought in women, that, for them, that money that is coming into their account is very important because they're thinking of ways to spend it for their children's future. Now, fine, toilets, ownership of homes, I think these are important welfare measures. But tablets, cycles, scooties are
but
not.
that is
They are
competitive
different.
welfarism.
No, that's not welfarism. That is freebies. Those are lollipops.
Come on.
I'm sorry.
But-
No, sorry.
no,
I'm
what do you
sorry.
mean?
I'm
Ma'am,
sorry.
Maybe
I
sorry,
think-
but it's not a good definition.
I'm sorry.
But ma'am, sometimes
the
we look
fact
at-
It's a bad
is that when
definition.
you're talking about women thinking about the future of their children, what they want
Ma'am,
is schools.
As a
Tell me,
Bihari, I've seen the transformation of my state, particularly the women of the state, when those girls got the bicycle.
To go to
okay,
school.
fine.
It
Great.
is
I
about
think- But you
empowering
must
them
have
for
a school.
school,
But you
covering
must have
distances.
But you must have a functioning
No, what do you
school.
mean by this?
Yes.
Yeah, sorry, Manisha. I'm
saying
sorry.
sorry, it's a bad
You know,
definition.
Yes,
I'm
you know,
sorry. In
yes.
Madhya
Bad
Pradesh,
definition.
if there are 9,000 schools with only one teacher, you may take your cycle to school, but you're not going to get any
Yeah, no,
education
why
in
we
that
talk
school.
about it? But ma'am,
isn't that important?
yes, I agree.
Why do we not?
Yes.
Why do we not discuss
No,
the
we talk
quality of
about
education,
quality of
the
education,
quality
yes.
of healthcare?
But ma'am,
Why do we have this very elitist thing that we can give a cycle to somebody
No, I
and feel
think
very
it's-
happy
it's on the
about it?
contrary.
I
It's
part
think
of a
that is
composite
elitism
program.
No,
also.
it would be
I mean,
contrary to
very,
what-
very
yes.
elitist.
Yes, before I
Handing
bring in
out
Manisha
arms to
Priyam.
a
Yes,
beggar.
Professor Badri Narayan.
Yeah, actually, I would like to go on your question which you raised that Modi versus who? I think Modi versus criticism of Modi. So Modi versus Modi. So Modi will be everywhere. Second thing, that the Congress, what Congress and opposition is doing, they are doing politics of the language which has already dead. That was the language of identity politics. In the post-liberal time, the first phase was the time of identity politics. Second phase has started, this is the time of aspirational politics. So there another contest would be
But Professor
politics
Badri
of
Narayan, I'll
identity
make one
and
point.
politics of
I'll
aspiration.
just try and make one point. Politics of identity and politics of aspiration is
Aspiration.
intertwined if you look at it. Because again,
Yes.
this current government has as much OBC representation, perhaps more in comparison to their opposition parties. So when it is about identity, it is represented as
Yeah,
much
Maria,
as the aspiration
Maria.
going ahead.
Yeah, Maria, identity, aspiration, politics takes something from identity.
Yes.
But it's a bigger politics. No, it creates bigger narrative. It's inclusive, not exclude anyone. So it try to make inclusive. So the politics of aspiration fly in the sky, and creating big narrative, big hope, and that kind of politics is going to be visible or dominant in the coming election. And third thing is, again, and we are all here and we know everything, that in coming election again the beneficiary, either you reject this term, लाभार्थी को आप चाहे छोटा माने चाहे बड़ा माने, but ये एक बड़ा discourse के रूप में अगले election में भी it will continue and it will reshape the politics of election, but not लाभार्थी चाहत तो होगी कि रिजर्वेशन का लाभार्थी की पॉलिटिक्स भी हो, but it would be लाभार्थी for everyday requirements, everyday needs, existential need of marginal public and marginal people.
So I'd like to just add to this by saying two things, that the beneficiary politics for the national elections, in contradistinction to what Professor Badrinarayan had to say, it will have to align with the politics of aspirations. Remember, what is Prime Minister Narendra Modi promising? We are home to the world's largest population of youth, that are the world's largest population of poor rural youth, right? You can call them OBC, you can call them anything. What is the horizon of aspiration realization? And I think while women will look for a basic threshold stability to household incomes and performance, youth who form the largest chunk, they will look for a basic floor minimum of aspiration realization. And that's where I think there is a real challenge coming from some of the microspheres where the Congress is punching it and winning it, and the BJP, I can tell you, will be quick to take those lessons which are in the arena of youth aspiration realization. The cycles that you spoke about are surprisingly and unfortunately not freebies. They are a part of a designed whole arena of state welfarism. Capitalist
Scooty
states
will not be.
No, one second. Even Scooty can be. Why do you mean peddling is okay and Scooty is not? Depends on how you define the aspiration realization and whether it's a part of a programmatic endeavor by a state to deliver, to change and transform. For example, the ration given to us could have been, just $1 or a freebie, but it allowed me to graduate out of an elite college in an expensive city. What are you doing to the Paswan boy in Bihar to be able to come and study at St. Stephen's College in Delhi? Now, if those dreams are being woven somehow by support systems of state, whether it be food, whether it be cycles, whether it be coaching centers, you can call all of them freebies, whether it be clothes.
But
that is very important.
That is precisely the point that I was trying to make.
No, you were saying
it
cycles
must-
are
no,
freebies.
that-
Sorry.
No, this is
yes,
also
I
asset
said
creation.
cycles
It's
are
not just
freebies.
direct benefit
I
transfer.
said
You have to
cycles are
composite asset
freebies
creation.
because cycles
Is
must
what
have somewhere to
IRDP
go
started
to.
with that.
You need to create a structure in which people can realize their aspirations. Just giving a cycle is not enough. There has to be more. It has to be cycle plus.
But
that's
you
the
can't
point I
decide
was
that.
trying to make.
It may be very important for the person, but
No,
the other
cycle
critique
may be
is
important,
Yeah.
but you have to go beyond that.
No, of course there will. There'll
and
be a
that
composite
that
program of
where,
social welfarism
That is
which
where I'm
marks a
afraid the
developed
country
country.
has lagged behind
Yeah.
in
It's about the
creating
country,
the
but the country-
infrastructure
look, Maria.
for people to realize their aspirations.
but why-
And the
That's why you're
discontent
not
and
getting
alienation,
the
Maria,
full
I mean, you were talking
benefit
about
of your
discontent and
demographic
alienation.
dividend because
You
you
know,
have
And I just
unskilled
want to bring a
workers,
point
Just
about
to
discontent
add
and
young
to-
workers
just
alienation.
to
who
add to
are
what ma'am is
unskilled.
saying.
Just one quick point about discontent and alienation, which you said, which was a point that was brought out.
Maria,
No,
just
this
say
has
one
been
thing.
Yes, I'm coming to you,
This has
Professor
been
Badrinath.
admitted by the
Yeah,
Prime Minister
just
himself
I want to
when
say
he
one
addresses
thing.
the fact that
That's-
80 crore
that
people need to be given
aspiration-
food
One
grains.
moment, Professor Badrinath, let him finish
If
his point.
80
Yeah,
crore
just I
people
want to-
need to
I
be
want
given
to
food
add,
grains, there
I
is
want to add one line.
admittance by the Prime Minister himself that they need your help, and you wonder what you've been doing for 10 years.
Okay.
If so many people have not been taken out of poverty. In fact, the government statistics are false. People have not been taken out of poverty.
Can I
They've
just
succumbed to
quickly-
poverty.
Okay, let him-
and that
let-
is
let
why,
Tuhin
and that
quickly
is why
respond
the
to the government
statistics are
statistics.
given.
The
You have
point
not
being
even
made,
had
Maria.
just need
One
to
minute. Yes,
respond
Tuhin,
to,
quickly.
ma'am had been asking
Maria,
what's beyond
Maria, can I say
cycle.
something?
One
Can I
moment,
just
sir.
complete?
Yes.
So
Yeah.
there needs to be something beyond giving the cycle. All of the government schemes, whether it is Nal Se Jal program, which prevents the time which a studying girl would go to fetch water.
Important.
the toilet program, the Ujjwala scheme, all of these
Very good.
basically
Absolutely.
complement
And I
the
support them.
cycle.
I
So
support them.
so you
But
support, but that is
I'm
precisely what this
talking-
government has done.
Yeah.
What I am saying is that, we have diligently empowered the Labharthis are all empowered. Beyond this, if Congress goes overboard, there is a clear malified design to perpetrate scam and to inflict financial anarchy upon the country, which is what all the
What is
state
being
governments are
overboard,
doing.
Tuhin? I was
Look
just
at
wondering what
Himachal
overboard
Pradesh,
is.
look at Karnataka, they are not able to pay government
Punjab.
salaries.
Look at Punjab.
Maybe
Look
let
what
Badri
happened in
come in.
Punjab.
Okay.
Professor
Tushar
Badri.
and Professor Badri Narayan. But first, Professor Badri
Maria,
Narayan.
Yes, I would like to add one thing, that this difference between identity politics and aspiration politics is that aspirations always dilute the categories, dilute the and also open up it and break the homogeneity of a group politics. So it creates a bigger narrative for bigger mobilization. So identity politics may transform in the aspirational politics, but aspiration is a progressive diction of the politics. And identity in that way, much backward diction of the politics, which opposition is resting on that, is basing on that.
Yeah.
So they are missing a point that the mentality of the people are changing fastly in Indian society, and their requirements are changing, and you have to respond that, but not with the old diction. You have to develop new diction
with the
to
new
respond.
political language.
And what Modi is doing, he and his party is always try to observe these new changes in the people mentality and try to respond to that by their policy programs and the discourses.
Tushar, new political language.
Look, there is a new political language post-2014. Labharti is a post-2014 phenomena because of the direct benefit transfers and everything. But I want to address one of the concerns raised by the Congress spokesperson about the economic performance of the BJP. Look, every time Congress comes up with this 8% growth jibe, but their 8% growth came with an NPA crisis in the banking sector. If we were indeed growing on 8 to 10%, the public sector banks should have been flourishing with profits, but they were in losses. They were pulled out by an asset quality review starting 2016, which was started by Raghuram Rajan, who sort of now endorses the Congress ideas. So the Congress cannot question the economic performance or use it as a launchpad to win the 2024 elections. And that is why the whole Adani-Ambani Sarkar also did not work for the Congress in 2022. And about the discontent, look, Maria, there has been no worse period for this country than between 2020 and 2022 when we had the pandemic. And we must not forget, since we're looking at previous elections, how UP, Uttarakhand, Goa, they voted back the BJP with thriving majority, even after economic lockdowns, even after businesses were shut. So let's not talk about discontent. The real issues on the ground would be who is going to be the alternate face to Modi. People are now going to want a face. The state elections were to be a litmus test. We saw the parties couldn't come together. Samajwadi had its own critique of the Congress. Aam Aadmi Party wanted to fight on every seat. So the people, if they want to vote for the Congress or the alliance, they would want a face.
But
and
Tushar, BJP is okay with the idea of not having a face in the assembly elections. But of course, for the central elections, it's Prime Minister Modi. But how much of, the brand is, the BJP as a party is too dependent on brand Narendra Modi then. Even in assembly elections, we have seen the results. What happened in Karnataka?
No one is discounting that dependency, Maria, and that is something BJP has to work with. But even on the state level, they have some powerful leaders. Look at what Devendra Fadnavis, Yogi Adityanath, Himanta Biswa Sarma, Yedurappa in the south, they have been able to achieve. In Gujarat, there is a local ecosystem spearheaded by Amit Shah. In Haryana, you have a separate leadership. So while there is a dependency on Modi, the Congress too has a dependency or probably a liability in Rahul Gandhi. But in 2024, the state level, dynamics won't work. They will have to put a face forward. And if it's Rahul Gandhi, it has to be him. But
whether
then
they will put the face forward or as the indication is from the India party is that they may just look at some kind of calculation post the results. Let me give the final words to the two women on the panel, beginning with you, ma'am, and then the final words to Manisha Priya.
Well, there's no question that Modi is going to be the issue in 2024. And now it depends on, as far as the opposition is concerned, whether they can weave a compelling enough narrative to counter the Modi juggernaut, to counter the Modi phenomenon. I think that remains to be seen because the first hurdle they have to cross is seat adjustment. And that we'll have to see how they work that out, whether the coalition, survives, that process of working out a seat adjustment, or whether the coalition actually fractures on that point. We did see what happened during the assembly elections when the Samajwadi Party and the Congress could not come to an understanding in Madhya Pradesh. But in the Lok Sabha elections, of course, I think they are all looking at their future survival. And, it is really, for the opposition, it is a question of survival to be able to make some kind of a comeback in 2024. So let's see whether they are,
able to
stitch it together.
Maria, no two political moments are ever the same. And I believe very much that in a few days from now, we will be discussing what we've come here to discuss today, the result of the 5 elections. And remember, it's not going to be a small moment. My hunch is, though I do not know, that it will emerge as a Congress-dominant opposition post these state results, because I can't really see the other opposition parties of the India Alliance fighting these elections. So I'm more or less correct when I say that the opposition alliance will tend to be a Congress-dominant opposition alliance. There'll be important lessons. There have been issues around what are issues of basic survival, and what we call issues of basic survival and basic dignities are issues of a large section of India's population. There is the issue of youth, but importantly the issue of farmers, minimum support prices, what we are going to buy at how much. And I think the political discourse, even if not the competitive arena, the political discourse will change. And the political discourse that will change will color, in a fact, the political narratives of those who compete for the 2024 elections. It's going to be a battle of unequals for 2024, I'm quite sure.
Okay, so let's
but I think the political narrative will change.
On that note, that perhaps battle of 2024 will be a battle of unequals. Thank you so much for your time, Dr. Anshul Avijit, Tuhin Sinha, Aarti Jairat, Professor Manisha Priyam, Professor Badri Narayan and Tushar Gupta. I'll see you next week with another episode of The Big Fight. Thanks so much for watching.